All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher, joined by Brad Thomas. Thanks everyone watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. Today, Brad and I are going to break down two interesting matchups in the NFL. Jets at the Packers, the suddenly relevant New York Jets, and then the Seahawks and Cardinals, the suddenly relevant Seattle Seahawks in a way. Looking forward to talking about my man Geno Smith, who is flirting with the elite ranks of quarterbacks in the NFL, some absurd numbers around Geno. And then we're going to close out by talking about the Atlantic Division in the NBA. I think definitely the most compelling division race in the NBA, with the Sixers, Celtics, and Nets, and if you want, the Raptors and Knicks as well, fighting that out. Firstly, Brad, how's it going, mate? What's on your radar?
Man, it's going pretty good. I was excited to stay up late and watch some NHL last night. I had probably one of the most epic victories. I had the Knights over 5.5 goals and Etchell to score a goal, and all three happened in the third period. It was a massive third period. So, you know, I'm a little tired, but I'm super excited that my bankroll's a little bit bigger.
Yeah, it's all starting to heat up now. We've got NHL, NBA's around the corner, obviously NFL, college football, the Champions League's going on, the Europa League games today. So a lot happening, a lot to keep track of, but with that, a lot of opportunities as well. I want to talk about one of those opportunities, which is the Jets +7 at the Green Bay Packers. The total is 45.5. Firstly, it is still insane to me that the New York Jets are only 7-point underdogs in Green Bay, and yet the line feels correct. Is there anything that jumps out to you about this game?
You know, this is an interesting game. There's so much history behind Aaron Rodgers off a loss. I think my entire life I've been betting anytime Aaron Rodgers loses a game, I automatically bet him against the spread. But when I look at this, I kind of have a hard time backing the Packers here. Like, I'm drawn to the Jets, and I wonder, are the Jets finally starting to be that team that, you know, Robert Saleh had envisioned when he took over this job? You know, defensively, they have a pretty good pass rush. They have Sauce Gardner, and then offensively, Zach Wilson. Say what you want about the kid and all his exploits, but man, he looks the part. Then you give him a good weapon in Breece Hall. The Packers so far this season are 1-2 against the spread, a favorites of 7.5 or more. Honestly, I think that I'm going to have to take the Jets, but I'm literally bucking tradition. It's a tradition that I've grown to love, but 7 points just feels like too many. It's going to be 3 straight against the spread losses for the Packers for me.
Yeah, the Packers, they're a team that have just proven time and time again that they just cannot defend the rush, even if they know that you're running the ball every single time, like the Bears did in prime time with David Montgomery, like the Patriots did with Bailey Zappi at quarterback, just running Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris relentlessly, and then what Saquon Barkley did in London. And this Jets team has shown that, you know, they can run the ball effectively with Breece Hall and Michael Carter. And I think the Jets are suddenly a really compelling team in the futures market, just from a lot of different angles, which they basically haven't been in a decade. But the Jets now, like, you look at Breece Hall, who I think should be the clear favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I make him +350. He's still bigger than that in the market. I would have him edging Damian Pierce, just because I think that he's just has a better offense and more ceiling. I think that Sauce Gardner, I would have him favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year over Devin Lloyd. There's just, as we saw with, you know, Tom Thibodeau, Coach of the Year, and Julius Randle, Most Improved Player, there is just an edge to New York teams and players when it's close, and I think Sauce will get that edge if it is close between him and say a Devin Lloyd. But the other one that's really interesting to me, and I'm keen for your thoughts, Brad, is that Robert Saleh is 50-1 Coach of the Year. That just makes no sense to me at all, that he's 50-1, and then Brian Dable is like +600. Like, to me, those guys should be much more closely bunched. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I just think it's based on record right now and expectations. I think people are believing that the Giants are going to have a better record, going to be the better team. But you're right. Saleh should be much closer. Like, 50-1 is massive for a team who I think has high upside. I said this early when we were catching Jets like +13 or whatever the spreads were early in the season, that the Jets are going to be a team we're going to start to bet on. You could kind of see it coming together. whether it's going to be this season or next season, we're going to be betting on the Jets a lot. That's what happens when you're well coached. You have good offensive pieces and young talent.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, you touched on it with the young pieces. That's what gives this team upside, is that there is so much youth, and youth creates variance, it creates unknowns, and that's what you want when you're writing a 50-1 ticket.
Yeah.
And really what that is it's a bet on the upside of Zach Wilson for the most part. And look, Zach Wilson is probably not going to be that good this year. Like, that is the expectation. That's the median outcome. But he's also is the number 2 pick, and this is his second year in the league. And for the first 2 weeks, he's been fine. He's been better than he was last year. And there is huge upside even this year in Zach Wilson developing into just an average level quarterback. And, you know, right now the Jets are 17th in the league by DVOA. They're 18th in the league by PFF grade, and they have youth. And so it doesn't take much for that to become 13th or 14th in the league. And then if you're the 14th best team in the league, it's not that difficult to back into an 11-6 record. And I think that the Jets, to me, they should be about plus 400 to make the playoffs. And then I think if they make the playoffs, I think that they should be around, you know, plus 200 for Robert Saleh to win Coach of the Year. So by my numbers, he should be like 14-1 instead of 50-1. So I think that's probably the best bet in the Coach of the Year market at the moment, recognizing that Nick Sirianni, who Drew and I talked about a lot preseason, should be the favorite. All right, before we get into Cardinals-Seahawks, which doesn't have any Coach of the Year candidates, unless you really want to get involved in Pete Carroll. Just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen in college football on the NASCAR circuit and in the Premier League. There's also $100,000 up for grabs by guessing the outcome between the Cowboys and the Eagles in our Sunday Night 7 contest. Massive game there with the Eagles 5-point favorites. All right, let's get into one of the, I guess, less marquee matchups on the board, but still pretty compelling to me. And I don't understand this line either. The Cardinals are 2.5-point favorites at the Seattle Seahawks. The over-under is a massive 50.5, but I think justified when you look at what happens, particularly in Seahawks games. What stands out to you about the line and total here, Brad?
You know, initially I wanted to look at the total, but neither team are particularly efficient, and this could turn into one of those really gross matches that feature a lot of field goals. So I lean the Cardinals here. And I have been high on the Cardinals all season. I think I've only bet the Cardinals once all season. In the offseason, there were a lot of question marks, a lot of issues that the Cardinals had to adjust. Their metrics last season weren't great. And when you look at their metrics this year, you know, they don't really improve that much. You haven't seen the improvement. Maybe the run games got better, but now you have a banged up James Conner. But I do think ultimately it's going to come down to the quarterback play. The Seahawks are going to have to rely a little bit more on Geno Smith, who is doing great. He leads the NFL in completion percentage and passer rating. Yeah, that's great. But without Rashad Penny, they're going to really have to see what they have out of Kenneth Walker. I just have to go with the Cardinals. I mean, this is a team that's dead last in offensive DVOA, and I don't think they're going to get any better, especially going against the Arizona run defense that's 5th in the league.
Yeah, we're going to have to go head-to-head because I'm riding with my man, Geno Smith. I think this offense has been efficient. They're playing really up-tempo as well, and they're putting it in Geno's hands a lot more than they ever did in Russell Wilson's hands, which is bizarre. But I just think that the Seahawks, with the weapons that they have in Lockett, in Metcalf, obviously Rashad Penny goes down, but, you know, Kenneth Walker, you know, had the massive touchdown against the Saints. And I think the only thing that you can count on in this game is there being points, and that's why the total is 50.5. I think in terms of the worst defenses in the NFL, it's basically, if you want to think about it as tier 1 in terms of the worst, it's Detroit and Seattle, and then there's a gap to the rest. The Cardinals are a weird team to just kind of think about and process because they were in the mix for the 1 seed for much of last season, and now they're a team that everyone is just kind of, I think everyone probably thinks of the Cardinals as like an 8 and 9 type of team. There should be upside. I really want to find a long shot in the NFC just because I don't think that the Eagles are, you know, a Bills type juggernaut. At the same time, though, if you're looking for long shots, like you find it's teams like, you know, it is teams like the Cardinals or the Saints, and they're just, none of them are particularly inspiring. So I do think that that the Cardinals, that they should be better and that they should get better, particularly as, you know, they get back DeAndre Hopkins. But they're just a team that just does a lot of stupid stuff, which isn't that scientific or analytical to say, but they just do stupid things consistently. They find themselves in awful game states constantly. And so, you know, we'll see if there is upside in this team to come. But I do think that the look here, if anything, is potentially even the over, just because the Seahawks defense is that bad. I know that Tariq Woolen is getting some defensive rookie of the year buzz, and that's fine. But the rest of the defense just hasn't, is making, you know, Taysom Hill look like peak Randy Moss and peak Adrian Peterson at the same time. So I think that if anything, I'd probably skew the over. I think this Arizona offense has some explosiveness in it that hasn't fully been realized. But I mean, where would you skew on the total?
Yeah, it would have to be over. There's no way that I'm possibly going to bet under with these two defenses, defenses that don't get pressured, defenses that make a lot of poor decisions and are pretty poor at tackling. I still am out on the Cardinals in terms of their offensive production being this great juggernaut under Cliff Kingsbury, but it's just hard for me to want to get excited about this game from a betting perspective. I would probably look more towards player props. When those markets release, I feel like you could find some juicy ones, because regardless if they're points or not, the teams are going to be able to move the ball.
Yep. And I think that we're at the point now where we kind of just have to treat Geno Smith as being real, as being, you know, a top, I don't know, is Geno Smith like the 16th best quarterback in the NFL? It sounds weird to say, but like he's first in the league in PFF grade among quarterbacks, above Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. He's first in the league in passer rating, which is a flawed statistic, but still, if you're first in the league, that's good. And he's second in DVOA. So I think that, you know, with this offense, with his weapons and what he's shown, and it's not like he's throwing screen passes to Tyreek Hill, who's taking it 80 yards. Like, he's making real plays. He's doing it within structure, outside of structure, and he's got a lot of weapons. So I think that Geno is real, as strange as that is to say. And I think that this Seattle offense can be relied on to score for most of the season. All right, before we jump into the Atlantic Division in the NBA, a reminder that the basketball season is almost here, and you can get a jump start on your draft with the RotoWorld Fantasy Draft Guide. Get player profiles, expert rankings, mock drafts, and more. And you can use the code HOOPS5 at checkout and get yours for just $5. So go to NBCSportsEdge.com/Edge Plus today. All right, Brad. Yesterday you were talking smack about Marcus Smart, so I brought out the heavy attire.
I love it. I love it.
There's only 5 people on this planet I love, Brad. My wife, my 3 daughters, Marcus Smart, narrowly edging my 2 parents who created me. But let's jump into Marcus Smart's division, the Atlantic Division, where, just to quickly run through the odds, because I think this is a really compelling market. The Celtics are understandably the favorite at +135. Then the Nets are the second favorite, which I don't agree with at all. They're +215. And then the Sixers are +275. And then if you want to get into some long shots, which I personally wouldn't encourage, but the Raptors are +1,000. And then the New York Knicks, you can basically write your own ticket, but they are 66-1 on PointsBet. Is there any team in particular at the prices that jumps out to you, Brad?
Yeah, for me, it's the 76ers. And first, let me talk about why I don't love the Celtics at +135. I understand why they're the top in this division. You know, they acquire Malcolm Brogdon. They were a good team. They have a great tandem in Tatum and Brown, and then they have Marcus Smart, your rookie of the year. I mean, your defensive player of the year. For me, they're just going to have a lot to deal with without Time Lord playing. Al Horford, I didn't realize this, and I was looking this up, but Al Horford was used in screens games defensively, third most. Basically, what teams have been doing is they've been attacking him, making him really have to defend all positions, getting him involved in the action because, you know, they don't trust him defensively. He's older. Why I like the 76ers. The 76ers were an interesting team last year, and a lot of that had to do with how much production or how much they were outscoring their opponents when Matisse Thybulle was in the game. Now they add PJ Tucker, who is almost, if not as good defensively as Thybulle, but a better offensive addition. So this allows them to play comparable defense while getting a little bit more boost on the offense. And then I just am drooling over the Embiid Harden year 2 or year 1.5 connection. They are third best in Embiid to Harden handoffs with 1.19 point per possession, and they are best in the NBA in Harden to Embiid ball screens at 1.13 points per possession. This is going to be fun. This team's going to play a lot of defense, but they're going to be really efficient on offense. Where are you looking?
Yep, I'm with you. The Sixers would be the bet for me at plus 275 for a lot of the reasons that you just outlined. And then also what we talked about a couple of days ago with, why we like their win total over 51.5. I just think this team has a lot of depth. I think that Harden is going to be better than last year. I think that Harden, Embiid, is weirdly underrated, it seems, in public consensus. Like you talked about, when you run pick and roll with James Harden and Joel Embiid, it's the most efficient offensive play in basketball. I think that Tyrese Maxey has upside. And I think that the guys they added, like DeAnthony Melton, is really good. And he was a huge part of that Memphis regular season record last year. I think that PJ Tucker is just about the perfect player to put next to Joel Embiid as well. So I do like the Sixers at the prices. I would be a little bit concerned about Boston in that they just don't have the size that they had last year. Robert Williams, they're going to be really conservative with him. I wouldn't expect to see him until around Christmas potentially. And then Daniel Tice doesn't really move the needle that much, but at the same time, they don't have anything at the 5 outside of Al Horford and Grant Williams. And in preseason, their starting lineup has basically been Marcus Smart, Derek White, who's coming in for Robert Williams, Brown, Tatum, and Horford, and that's pretty small. And Tatum's huge, but he's a wing more than a traditional big. So I'd be a little bit worried about their size and compromising what was the best defense in the NBA last year. But Robert Williams, I never would have said this while I was riding my Marcus Smart 200-1 DPOI ticket, but Robert Williams is the best defensive player on the Celtics. He's the guy who impacts that defense more than anyone else. So I wouldn't be that interested in the Celtics at plus 135 for the Atlantic. If I was going to bet the Celtics, it would probably be, something that rides more of the ultimate upside, say like plus 600 to have the best record in the NBA. I'd be more interested in that just because I think that, for a team that is largely returning the same guys, I think there is a weird amount of variance with the Celtics just because they were really bad for almost half of last season. And then they were insanely good over the last about 50 games. So I think there is a little bit of unknown with that team, but I think they are rightfully the favorites. But at the prices, the Sixers would be my bet. Any interest for you in the Nets at plus 215?
Man, the Nets probably not. Health is wealth. And if you look at this team, and then Joe Harris, Curry, KD, Kyrie, Ben Simmons, literally TJ Warren, literally everybody I can name on their team has had some kind of injury issues. I do think they're going to be a fun team if they kind of slump a little in the season, if you want to put some kind of money on them to win the East. Because if it all comes together, if every team gets to their maximum potential in this division, I think the Nets are the team that's going to be the representative maybe in the Eastern Conference Finals. It's just hard to stop that tandem. But that's a lot to ask when you had a team that very rarely played together all season last year, and you need so many guys to take that next step, like a guy like Claxton, if he wants to take the next step. So from a betting perspective, there's no way I could put plus 215. Maybe I would want them to be a little poor or someone to get hurt for like a month. Never risk for someone to get hurt, but some adversity, and then maybe bet them to win the East. That's more like it. But these regular season games is not something I'm trying to bank on them having the availability all season.
Yeah, I think that look, they're a weird team with all the stuff going around Durant and Irving. Obviously, they're a very strange team, but they're also a strange basketball team. Just with you remove all of the exterior noise, like this team doesn't really make a great deal of sense. Like Simmons and Claxton, I don't think that they can play together. And then if you're not, you have to play Simmons. So then if you're not playing Claxton, then what are you really doing? Is it's Simmons or Durant at the 5 basically? And then are they going to have enough size and enough defense? I do think that they have if everyone stays healthy, they have quite a high floor, just because when you play Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant together, you're guaranteed basically a top 3 offense in the NBA. But I do think they have a lot of question marks. We haven't seen Simmons play basketball in a very long time. So we need to see what he looks like. And then they just have a lot of wild cards. Like, what are they going to get anything out of TJ Warren? Because like right now I'm penciling 0 out of TJ Warren. Then anything is basically a positive. I really want this team to just trade Joe Harris and a first for Miles Turner, because then everything just makes a lot more sense if you have Miles Turner, who's like the perfect center alongside Ben Simmons. So look, this team has huge upside, and I think that if they stay healthy, they should have a relatively capped floor. But, you know, Kevin Durant might not end the season on this team. There's so much weird stuff swirling around. So at plus 215, I've got no interest. And I think the Celtics, if you want to bet them, like I said, probably better off betting them for the higher upside stuff, like plus 600 to have the best record in the league, which is hugely correlated anyway with them winning this division and going in front of the Nets and the Sixers. But in terms of division prices, I think we're agreed that the Sixers at plus 275 are the bet. No interest in the Knicks, and I think the Raptors 10 to 1. Like, I think the Raptors' true price is more like 30 to 1 or so. So I wouldn't be interested in them either. All right, we are done. Don't forget to check out NBCSportsEdge.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks, everyone watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please don't forget to subscribe and rate us. From me, Jay Croucher, and Brad Thomas, that's it. We'll be back tomorrow to break down an epic Commanders-Bears game, among other things. And we'll chat some NBA too. So we'll see you then.